Alright, so boom. Yes, you read that right. Saving money is actually losing your money. You know, once you get into the habit of saving money, it can become addictive, seeing the numbers rack up and start seeing double figures or triple figures in your savings account. But you only need a certain amount to really be good, depending on your financial goals and what you're aiming towards. Beyond your emergency fund, which should have at least $1,000 to begin with, and at least 3 to 6 or even 12 months worth of expenses covered, you need to be investing into other areas of life or business ventures that have a high return on investment, because inflation is there and your bank is essentially using your money to do other stuff with it, because of the interest rate in your savings account is typically minuscule. It's typically nothing, pretty much, for the most part. So our boy Marko from WhiteBoard Finance essentially details this, and I'm gonna break down and critique how he critique his video pretty much. So subscribe to the channel, like the video. Hopefully you enjoy this installment of edutainment, the place where you are learning, laughing, but most importantly, applying things to your own personal life to make it better. So no long talk, let's cut straight to it.
Hey everybody, welcome back to WhiteBoard Finance. My name is Marko and I'm here to help you master your money and build your wealth. In today's video, we're going to talk about why savers are losers in this interest rate economy in 2020 and beyond. So being able to save money has always been looked at as a positive virtue. It's always like a penny saved is a penny earned, patience is a virtue, etc., etc. It's always been a sign of a responsible person to be able to think ahead, save their money, delay gratification, and then buy things later on in life that they really want. However, we're going to talk about 2 reasons why savers are losers. We're going to touch on inflation, we're going to touch on taxes, we're going to talk about how interest rates dictate our behavior, and we're going to talk about what to do about this scenario. So stay tuned. So the first reason savers are losers in this environment is because inflation. Inflation is a silent killer of purchasing power. So what purchasing power is basically saying, hey, in 1987, you can buy a gallon of milk for $1.50. In 2020, that same gallon of milk costs $3.50. So that is what we call inflation. And that...
You know, back in my day, candy used to cost 25 cents. Back in my day, an apple used to cost 10 cents.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
I always wondered why candy seems to get more expensive as the years gone by, and inflation is the culprit, no cap.
By CPI. So CPI stands for Consumer Price Index. So here's an actual chart of CPI going back a few years here. So you can see that the CPI in January of 2020 was 2.5%, meaning that all those goods that are measured in this screenshot went up 2.5% during that period. So here's a perfect example. Say you work a W-2 job, you work 8 to 5, white collar, blue collar, doesn't matter, and you get a 2% raise at the end of the year, okay? And you're sitting there thinking to yourself, great, I got 2% raise. Well, you actually just lost 0.5% in purchasing power if the CPI did indeed increase 2.5%. So here's another example. If you're a diligent saver, and to stay in the theme of this video, say you have a savings account earning you 1% annual percentage yield, but the CPI was 2%. The money that's sitting in this account is actually losing 1% in purchasing power. So you are a saver, but at the same time, you are a loser. Loser! Let's get on to the next step as to why savers are losers. And sorry, I've never done that before in my life. I just felt like doing that. I wasn't like a jock in high school, like, grabbing people by their underwear and like lifting them up into the, never mind. So the second reason savers are losers is because the interest that you earn in your accounts, whether it's your savings, your checking, your money market, anywhere you're earning interest, is going to be taxed at your regular income tax bracket. So most people watching this video are probably going to be in the 22 or 24% tax bracket, unless you're single, making a bunch of money. Good for you, congratulations. Or you could be ultra wealthy. Maybe Jeff Bezos is watching this video. Shout out to Amazon Prime. But here's a real world example. So say for example, you are a couple saving up for a down payment on a house, and you have 100 grand sitting in a money market account at 1.5%. So you're earning 1.5% annual percentage yield. It's 100 grand. All the math wizards here, how much interest are these people going to make in 1 year? You basically just take these 2 numbers, multiply them together, and voila, this couple has earned $1,500 in interest. But wait, did they really earn $1,500? If you remember, it's going to be taxed at their income bracket. Say, for example, they're in the 22% income tax bracket. 1,500 times 0.22 equals $330 taxable event. Now, to find out what they effectively made as their rate, they didn't make $150, okay? Because you have to subtract 330 from 1,500, giving you 1,170. You got to divide that by 100 grand. 100K equals 0.0117. You move the decimal place over 2 places, effectively giving them a 1.17% return. Big difference between 1.17 and 1.50, right? That's almost a third, okay? That's because you have to have a taxable event. Now, if these people invested in something like a long-term capital gain, they invested in stocks or whatever, and their income level for their income tax bracket was 22% right here, their equivalent in a long-term capital gain would have been 15%, which is a big difference. Some people actually fall into a 0% long-term capital gain tax. So that's just something to think about.
As you can see, like, it's getting a bit more like, complex a little bit. That's why you just can't be too complacent. You can't get, once you start making a little bit of money or a decent amount of money, more than you usually do, you just get comfortable, right? You're like, okay, well, I'm in this job, I'm comfortable, and then things just keep getting more expensive.
I just wanna lay in my bed.
Perhaps you were good by yourself, now you're married, now you got another expense with a wife, now you have a child, now things are getting more and more expensive, and as a result, your income is staying the same, but inflation is catching up with you. That's why it is so crucial, so important that you diversify your income, not just like have 5, 6, at least a second source of income coming in passively or a little bit like actively as well, right? Just don't rely on your own job. You can get fired at any time, and you may want to quit at any time because you just can't handle it anymore, right? So the savings account is there to keep you safe between you and Murphy's Law, between you and being out on the street, between you and being homeless. But you cannot be comfortable with your job. You cannot just be comfortable. You don't have to be an entrepreneur per se. You can be an entrepreneur even, right? You still have a regular job, but then you have like a little side hustle on the side, making you money as well, right? YouTube videos talking about your experience at your job, how much money you make as a computer engineer or stuff like that. People love seeing like your perspective on life and envisioning themselves at that point in life as well, right? So get on your grind. Don't be comfortable. Don't get lost in the sauce of the income. Just know inflation is always on your tail.
The 15% is obviously 7% less than the 22. So next, we're going to talk about interest rates and how they dictate our behavior as savers. Okay, so third, this isn't necessarily why savers are losers, but it's a reason how interest rates actually are a form of control. They dictate our behavior. So let's talk about this. So when interest rates are low, it makes more sense to invest. So think about our previous example. When you have 100 grand in the bank and interest rates are super, super, super low, and after the taxes that we talked about, you're really making 1.17% on a 1.5% money market account, which is nothing. Remember we talked about CPI and inflation? These people are actually losing basically 90-something basis points, or almost 1% to inflation every year that their money is in that money market account. Now, when inflation is up, it makes sense, when interest rates are up, it makes sense to save. So let's say, for example, that money market account, instead of being 1.5%, let's say it was 10% and CPI was 2.5%. Obviously, this is almost a risk-free 10% earnings on their money, which is great, okay? Now, with low interest rates, that's inflated assets all across the world, but definitely across the United States. So let's take a look at a real-life example of a mortgage, okay? The reason real estate prices are so ridiculously high at the time of this recording, they're pretty much at all-time highs, is because interest rates have been low for years, okay? So if you take a look at this chart, this is what we call a zero interest rate policy from December of 2008 to December of 2015. This chart is actually showing the effective federal funds rate, which is essentially how banks lend money to each other and also how they borrow it from the Federal Reserve. That's pretty much the rate at which they're getting it at, okay? So if you look at the chart from December of 2008 to December of 2015, interest rates have been almost at zero this entire time for 7 years. They crept back up and they're obviously going down now again. So with interest rates being low, think about it. If Jack and Jill wanted to buy a house and they could only afford a $200,000 mortgage when interest rates are, let's call it 10%, that's going to affect their purchasing power. Now, let's say rates are 2.5% on a 30-year mortgage. They can actually squeeze a lot more house out of that, in fact, inflating all real estate prices. So it's almost like an inverse relationship. Interest rates go up, asset prices go down. Interest rates go down, asset prices goes up because it's cheap to borrow that money, okay? So interest rates, remember this, it's a form of control and it pretty much dictates our investment behavior. So with all this being said, let's move on to what we're gonna do about it and how to prevent from being a loser if you are a saver.
So once you have at least a month worth of expenses, once you have $1,000 worth of expenses, you paid off your debt, and then you now have 3 to 6 or even 12 months worth of expenses, you definitely want to get in your investing bag, because it's all baby steps, right? It's all built up to each other. You can't be doing all of this, like investing and putting all this money here, while at the same time you're paying interest rates on debt that you owe, right?
No.
It's like focus your money all completely and entirely onto one thing, finish that, kill it, and then go to the next thing and kill that one as well.
Okay, so earlier in the presentation, we talked about how capital gains are taxed differently than your regular income tax bracket and a whole bunch of other stuff. These are going to be 4 examples of where you can park your money as opposed to just keeping it in a savings or a money market account. Now, before I suggest these things, I want to make it clear that you should definitely have liquid cash or liquid money available to you at any given notice, just because life happens, and I highly recommend that everyone has a 3 to 6 month emergency fund. However, for the people that do have the 100 grand sitting around and a 3 to 6 month emergency fund, these options may be more viable for you. So our first thing, we have paper. Paper is essentially just, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, things that I talk about on this channel. You can check out M1 Finance in the link below if you want to look at that. That's a way to invest your money in those things. Second is commodities. So if you remember my previous videos on what is money and what form money can take, commodities used to be money. So we have cattle, salt, natural gas, oil, gold, silver. This is what we call commodities. Typically, gold has been an excellent hedge against inflation, which we talked about earlier in this video. So it may make sense or behoove you to have some precious metals in your portfolio. Real estate. Real estate typically keeps up with inflation. Yes, it goes up. Yes, it goes down. But if it's income producing real estate, meaning that you have...
Housing is always needed. People always need somewhere to live. So you can invest your money in some houses, some condos. You'll be good. I just play. Yeah.
A tenant, or if it's a rental property or retail, commercial real estate space or office space or whatever, self-storage, as long as it's earning income and keeping up with inflation and producing you cash flow, that could be somewhere else to park your money. And then finally, this is obviously the most risky, but you can start a business. So whether that's buying an LLC or whether that's starting your own company or buying a franchise or whatever, at that point you're essentially creating a job for yourself unless you know how to manage it. But starting a business could be a more effective way and a more tax-friendly way of sheltering that money. So I know that this was kind of a quick ending to this video, and if you are a saver, that is a good thing. However, you just have to be cognizant of inflation, taxes, and other things that eat away at your purchasing power. So if you stayed this long, thank you so much. You're the real heavy.
But yeah, so that's pretty much it, man. Just be cautious. Once you have your savings account, it's bottled up, 3 to 6 months of expenses. I keep saying it. I'm gonna harp it down in your throats, right? And you're increasing your income in terms of other avenues via your business, side hustle. Definitely look into investing in some property that you can buy that can, you can put some tenants in, good tenants, right? So the 3 proven ways to make money and to be wealthy are real estate, your business, and investments. Savings is just for security, so you can sleep at night knowing that if anything happens, you and your family will be good for an extended period of time. Savings aren't the path to financial freedom or to building a legacy, so to speak. But using your money to invest in certain things, housing, business, mutual funds, stuff like that, that is the proven path towards wealth for yourself, for your children, your grandchildren, stuff like that. Or just to keep it within the family. You know what I'm saying? But yo, God bless, much love, peace and joy. Namaste. Always remember, if it doesn't feed you, don't water it. And too much of any good thing is good for nothing. How are you doing today? Hopefully you're doing more and saying less. Deuces.
A new day, oh my day.
Sweet one looking like a Kardashian. So bad, it don't matter what Kardashian. African. Give her seasoned wood, now she back again. It shows she's never really been with an African. Guess that's